Thanks, listeners, for joining us. It is Tuesday as we're checking in after a Memorial Day holiday and getting up to date with Elko City News with our Elko City Councilwoman, City Vice Mayor Mandy Simons in on the program today. And Mandy, always delightful to catch up with you. And, before we go on the program, we just chat a little and and I think it's like I'd rather talk about mom stuff sometimes. I don't know, listeners, should we just talk about mom stuff instead of
we should have a whole segment.
Exactly.
Like lessons I learned today. Just fair warning, this could happen.
Yes. I think there'd be definitely an audience for that. So, but here we are. Important business, and that is the most recent council meeting. I don't know if there's a draft out or not yet, but
I haven't got the draft. I do have the last meeting that we had that maybe we can talk about a bit.
I think there were a few juicy things on there actually.
There was some. It was a meeting full of juicy items, I guess. That is the word?
I think it is.
Yeah, like at least in our world, because we're not celebrities. This is as juicy as it gets for us.
Yes, definitely. So let's see. I'm looking at the same agenda as you. Tops on there. If we were kind of easing into things,
we did approve the final tentative budget, it is called, which is an oxymoron. Is it final or is it tentative? But that's what it's called. So we went ahead and approved that and signed that. Just 'tis the season. That's kind of what we do at the end of May every year. And
it's a healthy budget.
Yeah. We're doing okay. We are just hanging in there. We don't have money to do every little thing we want, but nobody does. So it was not, and it was the same agenda that we've gone over several times. It's on the website if anybody's interested. So we went ahead and took care of that.
Yep, that was tops on the agenda, and as Mandy said, and then that led into, for example, I don't know if it was worth mentioning some revisions some revisions to the employee relations section.
Yeah, we're just, for the next several meetings, if anybody attends, you'll notice that we're just kind of going through a section of the Human Resource Personnel Policy Manual, which we have to do every few years, and they try to break it up. So if you go to a meeting anytime in the future, you'll just see a few of these on here. Kind of if we can do them 3 or 4 at a time, it's less monotonous than if we have to do the whole thing. So we took care of that. We have quite a few new employees. Our police department for a long time has been down officers, and we have some pretty strict standards, and people have suggested that maybe we kind of let go on some of those things, but we have decided that we really want to keep our standards. There were little things. I know the chief mentioned a while back that there was some issue with tattoos, that as long as they're not offensive and they're, that's okay, that they had kind of tweaked a little bit. But basically we have very high standards. And so it's been, we've had a hard time finding people to fill all of our empty positions, but we were introduced to a new records technician this week and 2 new patrol officers. Sometimes we'll get lateral people that come from, I think one of these was from the state, a highway trooper. In the last few years, we've got some from California. So that's great. Those people usually are able to pass all the tests with flying colors. But we were excited to see that because they've struggled for a while.
Yeah, and I know that, and Chief Troughton talked about this on Thursday's program, Councilwoman Simons, about, a couple of recruits that actually came on their own from the sheriff's office. And so, that it doesn't really strain relations. It's just the reality is right now everybody's kind of grabbing at straws. So, yeah.
It's true. And so we're happy to have those on board, and the chief keeps us up to date on who passes what tests and what stage they're in and things. So we will be happy when we can get that department up fully staffed.
And that is certainly the goal. Under appropriation, if we skip around a little, going out to bid for Exit 298 sewer lift station and the Force Main project.
Yeah, we're able to go ahead and do that. The ARPA money has enabled us to do, of course, money for what it was meant for. There were some specific water, sewer, things like that. But it's also freed up some money that we were thinking, oh man, we're gonna have to do this someday. We've got to put money aside. Well, then we could use that money for other projects. So it was a bit controversial when we took that money. But our community has needs as well. And so we went ahead and we took that money, and we've been able to do several projects that we thought were going to take us a while. And this is one of them that we were able to just get going. And we're now out for bid. They've got all the design work done, and we're now going to go ahead and go out to bid and see what kind of bids we get. It's been common in the last year that bids come back a little higher because from the time that we get our estimate to the time the bid comes, things increase in cost. So we will see when that comes back. It was in that budget. It was planned for this 23-24 fiscal year budget, and they're just going to put a lift station and force main out at that exit, at exit 298. And so we're excited to get that going.
It makes sense because that's where some growth is happening, especially I think Komatsu's planning an expansion.
They are, yeah. And so we want to make sure that we have a situation where people are able to build if they would like to.
Yeah, and it's an investment.
Absolutely. And the design work was done a few years ago in 2019, and so we're happy that we can now go ahead and get that going.
Just following up on that. The next item, although different, also similar in that ARPA funds were set aside for this, for the Lamoille Highway bore and water line replacement project at Metzler and Dale.
Yeah, and also budgeted in the 23-24 fiscal year. So we had a situation just, a month or two ago where the water line crossing Lamoille broke. Just in the middle of the travel lanes. It was awful. And they kind of had a discussion with NDOT, and really the best course of action is that we need to replace that water line by a method that's jack and bore is what it's called. And so we'll abandon the existing line and we'll put in a new line, and it's kind of in the design phase, but we're going to go ahead and bid that in July.
All right. So again, looking forward to, some long needed repairs, or just these utilities or amenities, whatever they might be, they wear out. They have to be maintained.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then we went on to, and there were a couple of things, again, there were kind of heavy lifts for the city, but I think the presentations were really important. Rusty Barr was there for the Boys and Girls Clubs. And so while it seems like the city may be walking back some, it's actually just a plan B. It's an alternative.
Yeah, sure. So what happened is, you make these plans, but then before you go forward, you have to do research. You have to make sure all your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed. You obviously don't want to get in the middle of the project. And so we try to do as much legwork as possible, as do many other groups and entities out there. And we discovered that there might be a little encumbrance on one of the fields that would be the recreation center. And so what we decided to do, it's a...
Yeah, we're looking at our presentation.
Sorry,
we want to get it exactly
right.
Right. Yeah, because it's sensitive. We want to get it exactly right.
Right. And so it would take up part of Herrera Field, and because of, and I'm going to get the details wrong, but basically decades and decades ago, some federal dollars were used for a specific purpose on that field, and because of that, you have to go through a process if it's no longer going to be
like open space.
Field. Yeah. And so we're going to go forward with that, but it will delay the process, and we obviously need a pool. There were a few events that were kind of all jumbled in there, but let me go back by saying we are in urgent need for a pool. I've been down and toured it, and of course we've been kept up to date for the last several years, and this poor pool I think was supposed to last 20 or 30 years. It's been 50 years. For anybody that's been down there, it's just given its all, and it's time to move on. We have put, in the past 6 years, we've invested $1.4 million into the pool for major repairs and upgrades, and because we know that there's a new pool on the horizon, you kind of have to ask yourself, how much more are we going to put in? These are tax dollars. Are we going to put it into something that will then become obsolete in a couple years? We want to keep it up and running as long as possible, but at this point, probably the outside pool is done. And I hate to say that, but I think that that's the case, and we're going to try to keep that inside pool just limping as long as we can. For those that swim, we might just have to keep in the back of our heads that there is a possibility that we could not have a pool for a while. It's not what anybody wants. But that's kind of where we're at. So because we have a bit of an issue with where the Boys and Girls Club were going to build the new pool, and this possible encumbrance due to federal funds that were used to construct Herrera Field, we're kind of saying, well, where else could we build? Now, people have wanted us to build in different places because, especially Kemp Field, there's been a lot of pushback on that. And I've kept saying, well, this is not my project. Like if somebody comes, they would say, well, why can't you build here or here? Well, if somebody comes and says, hey, we would like to build at these proposed sites that you've listed, and it's city land and I can be of help, hey, yeah, let's look at it. But nobody's done that. The project that's been brought to us was at these fields. So when we were talking with Rusty, he didn't want to build where the current pool is at all because he doesn't want to interfere with current swim operations. The problem is the point we're at is that those swim operations have already been interfered with. And so he said, you know what, it's a great site. There's a possibility that he could kind of start building and not have that affect the inside pool for a little while if need be. But, there is the possibility that the inside pool would be shut down anyway. It's going to require some hard decisions, I think, on the council's part of at what point do we say, okay, yes, that's a minor repair. We're willing to pay for that. We're willing to keep the pool. And you know what? It's too much. We just can't do this anymore. It's not fiscally responsible. And so we're going to work with Dusty. And I think that this is plan B, is that Boys and Girls Club will now build the rec center on the current site of the pool. He thinks that they can probably keep Johnny Appleseed Park there. They've kind of looked at the footprint of the current design and it seems to fit well. So it's not like they're going to have to send it back to the drawing board altogether. And so that's what we voted on. He came and said, hey, can we do plan B at this site? And we looked at that site and we said, sure. Like, let's go forward with this because at this point, the city really needs this to move forward as quickly as possible. We want a pool for our citizens and the pool we have is on its last leg. So that's what we decided to go forward with is decided to get in talks to try to make this kind of plan B work. He indicated that he thinks they'll still, down the road when they do the event center, that they will probably do it, continue to do it on both Kump Fields and the west side of Herrera. I mean, we'll see when we get there. We're not sure, but we're just going to move forward. We're just going to keep the ball rolling. And so just so everybody knows, that's kind of the new plan, is that this new pool, and I know that they would like to do something in addition, make it more than just a pool, depending on funding, and of course everything is skyrocketing right now. That will now be where the current pool is. So if you, at some point, maybe later in this year, start to see some construction going on there, that is where it is. And then of course we had to say, okay, well, if we're not losing as many fields, what do we want to do on the sports complex? Because we were, of course, going to go out to bond and build some more fields out there, do phase 2, so that when we lost all these fields, people would still have a spot to play. We're kind of now wondering if maybe we don't go out to bond, at least not yet. We're not going to lose as many fields, and so maybe we wait. Maybe we can save up more money, not have to bond for as much. There's just not the urgency there was, because at some point we were going to do whatever it took to get this pool built as quickly as possible. And we're still doing that. It just doesn't necessitate that we go out to bond for $10 million at this point. So we're going to push that off. And yes, maybe we'll save up more money and maybe it will cost that much more by the time you just don't know. But we've kind of made the decision that maybe we will not go out to bond and we're not going to worry about the sports complex phase 2 this second. It's obviously will happen someday, but there's not the urgency that there was. So those are kind of the big changes that happened at the city council meeting. We're going to back off in phase 2. And the first kind of phase of the Boys and Girls Club, which is the recreation center, will now be where the current pool is.
Councilwoman Mandy Simons, that's a really good update, Mandy. There are so many moving parts. I think the key points, again, the takeaway from both the Boys and Girls Club, Rusty Barr's presentation was that they want to start construction as early as this fall. I think he's bringing some preliminary plans to the council during
I think our next meeting,
yeah.
He has some plans just almost ready, and so we'll see those, and we're excited to see those, and that's kind of where they're at. I think that the contract to convey the land is now being negotiated. It will be a slightly different parcel of land now, but we'll work through that, and it will be fine. There was some dedication of streets surrounding the area, kind of trying to get that area all cleaned up on the city map and everything so that we can just move forward as soon as they're ready.
And so then just for a part 2, so that folks understand the city, it's not a city project, but the city
Right.
is not walking back on the event center. In fact, the Boys and Girls Club president of the board, Casey Gallagher, was at the meeting and said, look, we want to continue to go forward in good faith with the conveyance because the surveying is complete. The contract to convey the land is currently being negotiated with the dedication of streets surrounding the proposed event center and rec center sites.
And they were on that.
Yep, they were approved on the
Yeah.
agenda. Herrera Field land possible encumbrance is due to federal funds, and they indicate that they're working with the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources on a path forward.
Yeah, they're still going to go down that path, but we were warned. At first, we kind of thought, okay, we'll just do this and it should be easy peasy. But once we got investigating, of course it's not. Of course it's not easy. And so they're still going to work with that. We're still going to go down that path. But we just can't wait years to even find out if we can do it there. It's just not going to work out for this community. The community will then up, I guarantee, being several years without a pool. And we still might. So we're just trying to get things moving as fast as possible.
All right, thanks for that. And then the event center options, it's also indicated the direction from the council is that alternative sites might be considered depending on how complex this encumbrance is. So, stay tuned. There could be more coming on that.
Yeah. If the Boys and Girls Club comes back to us and says, okay, this isn't going to work, so we aren't going to do it. Or we'd like to look at this site. We think maybe we can do something slightly different, but do it here and here. Then we'll look at that. But we're just whatever they've come to the city for, that's what we're looking at. It's not our project, so it's not really our job to say, oh, well, we like this piece of land so much better. You come to us, you tell us what we want, we'll approve it or not approve it, and then we'll move forward. And at this point, we think we've got a good plan.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman. Again, it will be on the agenda, most likely, on the upcoming meeting. The draft agenda should be out Thursday, I think, or the agenda should be out Thursday.
Yeah, the agenda's out Thursday,
for Tuesday. And then the other thing that, as you alluded to early in this discussion, there was a presentation on the infrastructure projects that the city's identified, the real cost, if you will, versus the initial projected cost. And it's kind of startling for some of that.
It was startling. Yeah, we had projects when the ARPA money came out. We said, okay, these have been our priority projects. This is what we'd like to do. We got those all, went through the process to make sure they qualified and all good things. And we, one of those was a second source over at the hospital. The engineer had an estimate of about $3 million. And that one weirdly came back where, let me see. I'm sorry. Our initial projected costs were $2 million, and when it came back, it was $3 million. So an extra $1 million.
And that one is out to bid, though. So that one's that's proceeding.
Yeah, and then over at Exit 298 and Cattle Drive, that project was about $1 million over as well. Elko Mountain was right around, maybe slightly under, but right around the initial projected cost of $6 million. The big start, and then Exit 298 Cattle Drive tank was actually quite under what we wanted. We thought it would be about $5 million. It only ended up being about 2.8. So those alone, maybe not crazy off. However, Ericart, we want to get a road from kind of an alternative route to Lamoille Highway. And so we wanted to go from the city out to the hospital, at least get that section done. And we thought, okay, the initial projected costs were $2 million. When we got digging around and doing some engineer estimates, it came back at almost $20 million, 10 times what we expected. And obviously we don't have the money for that. So the board was asked to make some decisions. What are our priorities going to be? What are we going to do? There were two options given to us, but what we decided to do is, sorry, let me go to the page where it has the,
you're fine.
the
Take your
two
time.
options here.
And you're getting a little help from engineer Tom Gallagher on that one.
Yeah, he has come to us and said, I would feel comfortable if you'd let me go on behalf of the city and the county to Amity's office and see if we can get, 10 million or so. But we're still going to need about 10 million. We really are. And we just don't have enough money for that. And so we kind of had to cut out some projects that we might do later and make sure that we have this money in reserve in case if Tom Gallagher comes back and says, got your 10 million, we don't want to go, we spent ours on something else. That might look bad. So we'll have that. And if for some reason the Ericart extension doesn't work out, then we can go ahead and take that money and go back and use some of these projects that we kind of skinnied down a bit We still want to work on them, but we just might not be able to complete them all. Instead of doing, I don't even know, a tank and a whatever. We might just do one of those things. And so we're going to get moving on all of those things. The hospital second source, the work at 298 and Cattle Drive, Elko Mountain, Ericart. We're going to work on all of those. But we were hoping to complete them all. And that's not going to happen probably at this point. Just money is not there and things are costing. I will say that with Ericart, we've had some engineers working on it. And I would think, that making a straight line from point A to point B, if you can, would be the cheapest. However, they have to look at things like how much dirt work. So if you're on the side of a hill versus on a flat spot, things like that. And so by kind of making the road like meander a bit, not quite a straight line, they're going to save probably $8 million just doing that. So that's going to be great. They've kind of valued engineered at what do we have to do, what's really necessary, what would be nice, but maybe we could do later. And they've looked at all those kind of things. And so we're going to go forward with it. It's not what we wanted. It's not what we initially thought, but we can't afford everything that we initially wanted. So we've had to pick and choose, and we'll still get those things done. It just might take us a little while.
Well, thanks for the update there. And I know that on the program Wednesday with County Commissioner John Carr, and this one in particular, because the city has gone to the county asking for maybe some financial consideration because it would be a regional road.
It is going to be a regional road, yeah.
Yeah, you might need to talk him into it a little more. He's not as convinced because it doesn't access the Spring Creek site. It provides an important route to the hospital. And alternative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's hard. They have their priorities and we have ours, and there are some things that we think we should work in conjunction with, and maybe they don't feel the same way, and so we'll have to.
There's probably some wiggle room, though.
I hope so. Yeah. I sure hope so. They are on board with supporting Mr. Gallagher, and so that's helpful. And then the city will do what we can. As far as getting a second road all the way out to Spring Creek, there's no way we could do it, or really that it's our responsibility to do that. It would benefit our citizenry, but that really is a regional. That's Spring Creek Road, and that's in the county, and they would definitely need to step forward on that. But we wanted to try to do at least this.
And it seems like there'd be a federal highway consideration as well, because Barbara Kanovich, when she was Congresswoman, she helped get money to pave that whole 4 lanes.
And so Lamoille is.
And it goes to the scenic byway. There are lots of incentives there.
Yeah, and we would love for this to be kind of a federal, state, county, city project, but getting that many people on board might be tough. So we'll see. We're going to start with baby steps and see where we get, and hopefully it works out. And
one thing the county did, though, is they did contribute to the air service development.
They did. We're very, very grateful because the airport 100% is a regional asset. I'm not even going to say it's a county asset. It's a regional asset for most of this area in Nevada. And so they've come forward, and of course we're contributing, and we're just trying to get all the players to buy in, because at this point, if we want to keep air service, we have to provide revenue guarantees.
We're coming up on days, right?
Yeah.
Before that runs out.
It's very, that whole contract, it's never a sure thing. And we're just holding our breath because they, of course, are trying to do what's best for the company. There's a huge pilot shortage. So even if it is best for the company, if they don't have pilots, then it's not going to work out. We're trying to keep things going on our side. We put in a bill and to try to get some funds. We asked them to create kind of a state transportation unit that would help with these rural airports, and they did create that, and that was it. There was no money, no office, it's kind of imaginary at this point, so we're hoping that goes through.
I was just looking at the legislative website, and I think they had a hearing in Assembly Ways and Means yesterday at 8 a.m. Yeah, they worked on Memorial Day, but the minutes aren't available yet, so I'm not sure.
And I haven't got an update yet. We do get updated from our city clerk every so often, but I haven't got an update, so I don't know where that's at. It was holding on last time I checked, so we'll see where that's at. But yeah, we do have these regional assets that sometimes we do need to partner with the county or other entities.
And that, brings us to, we might as well get another, if there is a legislative update on, and because of the holiday, I think it's harder to get the latest information, but the Senate Bill 266, that's the prevailing wage one, right?
Yeah, so there were a couple prevailing wages, and of course, the governments pay prevailing wage on projects. There's limits and different statutes about that. But if private entities or we partnership with a nonprofit or something, for example, the Boys and Girls Club, this nonprofit is building something. Nonprofits do not have to pay prevailing wage. But some of these bills are basically saying, well, if you have your fingers in it at all, you now have to pay prevailing wage on the whole project. And that, of course, can add 30%. So if something costs $50 million, you're up 65, 70 higher. It kills projects, at least in our area. In other communities, maybe this doesn't happen as much. Maybe they don't always get things done by partnerships like we do here. But in the rules, that's how things happen. And so it would really be detrimental. We don't know if it would apply to the specific project, the Boys and Girls Club project, where it was kind of in the works beforehand. We're not quite sure how that works, but we will see. It looks like it's going to pass. There's always a chance the governor could veto things. We don't know if that will happen or not. So we're kind of in limbo.
Right. And June 6th is the drop dead date, next Friday. So
right. Yeah.
Live or die.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So we're just waiting like everybody else to see what makes it through and what doesn't.
Okay, Mandy. So, everybody's just kind of hanging on to that, waiting to see where it takes us. Yeah.
Yeah. And if they say if it passes and then we get word that that will absolutely apply to this project, then Boys and Girls Club will have to either raise more money or really go back to the drawing board and decide what's the most important to them. And they won't be the only ones. There'll obviously be many projects around the state that are in that situation.
And then looking at the current lease arrangements with like the Chamber of Commerce and Girl Scout House. And
how is it going to affect all these things? Is it just new things going forward? And we don't always have those details before the bills pass. Sometimes that's kind of worked out in the process or afterwards, and so you don't know.
Yeah, and I am definitely no lawmaker or attorney. So, and I was trying to read even the amendments that have been adopted.
Yeah,
it's like too many red lines.
Yeah, if it passes, when it's done, somebody explain.
Then we'll let Dave Stanton bring you the finished product.
But yeah, it is hard.
So anything else that's either on this agenda or maybe upcoming? I want to make sure, because we kind of got to all the nuts and bolts, I think, the real nitty-gritty stuff, Mandy.
No, just that was kind of what we ended with, is a legislative update at our meeting. So the budget and our ARPA projects and the pool, the rec center, those were kind of the big items that we had on Tuesday's agenda. And then, of course, on the next agenda item, I know that they're going to bring back those, hypothetically, Boys and Girls Club will bring back some drawings for us, so that will be very exciting, and we'll see what happens from there.
One thing we heard news that Michelle Rambo's leaving the city, which is unfortunate. That's because she's been a great development officer, I believe.
Yeah, she's worked in development now for a few years, and so she is moving on to other opportunities. We have one of our assistant pool manager and head lifeguard is heading out for other opportunities, and so we just wish them all the best. We also have our somebody in evidence over at the police station is leaving as well. So we have 3 different people that are moving on to other opportunities for various reasons, and we wish them the best.
ElkoCity.com is the website. So if you are interested in city employment.
Sure, yeah. And we especially in the summer, we also have some seasonal work. So if anybody's interested, go ahead and look at that.
I don't think there were any, but if you can refresh me, updates on the public nuisance complaint at 8th and Idaho, Mandy?
I do know that they reached out and that they had a certain amount of time to get back to us, and that they did not. So we'll just have to go forward with our legal options, and those might be presented at the next meeting, actually. I'm just trying to get something done. They do have regular garbage pickup there now, and so that's a huge plus. But we've had reports of people, because there's no water there, of people stealing water from residences and businesses in the area out of their hose, whatever it takes. That's where those people who are kind of squatting on that property are trying to get water from. And it's not moving forward like we would like it to move forward, for sure. And so Dave Stanton is working with our staff, and we're trying to see what our options are, and then we'll go down that path, because it's not okay to have that kind of activity. It's not just that it doesn't look good, it's that there's some criminal activity going on there, and we don't want that in our community.
Absolutely. There are health and safety issues. It's an out-of-state owner. Whether or not, his or her intentions were good, they're certainly not following through, and it creates this public nuisance, as we talked about.
Absolutely.
And the legal action includes possibly placing a lien on the property.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, people quite often come in front of us filled with good intentions, and they say, we're working on it, we've done this and done that, and you want so hard to believe them, but then their actions certainly tell a different story. And that's kind of where we're at with this property.
All right. So still more to come on that one. Talking with our Vice Mayor, City Councilwoman Mandy Simons. We have been getting a little more notice of possible flooding, Mandy. I don't know if there's any.
Yeah, I haven't got any updates, but I do know that things have been getting kind of dicey. I haven't heard of any residents flooding so far. I know that they've warned people to stay away from the out South Fork. There's things coming over the spillway, and so they've kind of warned people to be careful out there. But that rain that we got this weekend really raised the levels. I know we're supposed to get a little more this weekend, so just be careful. If you live in a flood zone, and there are some precautions that you can take. Do you need a backflow device, I'll call it. I don't know what the exact name is. Or do you need to maybe have some sandbags on hand? I know that the city has made sure that we're going to have some of those available. Like, if there's anything that you can do that you think for your particular property you might need to do, just keep that in mind, because they're not drastic yet, but they could do a complete 180 very quickly. And so we want people to be careful.
All right, Mandy, thanks for the update there. And of course, we'll check in with Weather Service and City, as you said, and with our Fire Chief, James Johnson. He's also part of that reporting and monitoring.
Yeah, and part of that group that really takes care of those kind of things in the county.
And things are going well at the golf course. We can probably end on that note, right?
Yeah, with some happy news.
Yes.
The golf course people seem to be enjoying themselves out there, and so I'm glad that's all working out.
Yep. So stop by the club at Ruby View and, enjoy a beverage or something to eat, and get out there and play golf and enjoy that too. It's a beautiful city amenity.
It is. Thank you.
Thank you, Elko City Councilwoman, our City Vice Mayor Mandy Simons, our guest on Elko Live here today on KELK.